Alright, I think we're recording here. Alright, so this is a new series I'm going to do about my life in the car business. So, around here, when I was about 10 years old, my older cousin was about, I don't know, 11 and a half. He come to my house. I lived upstairs in my mom's house. And, he come up there knocking on my door, and he's like, "Hey, man." I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" He's like, "Hey, man, let's go for a ride. Let's check out my new car." I'm like, "What? You got a car?" He's freaking almost 12 years old, and he's got a freaking car, right? So I'm like, "Oh, yeah, sure." So we go outside, and he's got a little Chevy Chevette, and this guy freaking loves Chevettes. It's the little sport scooter model, but it had a little V6 in it, and he had these big old freaking fat tires in the back, and it was slammed in the front. I'm like, "Dude, where did you get this?" And a pretty cool, awesome paint job on it. And he's like, "Oh, I just traded some stuff, and just bought it." And I'm like, you know, "Really going to drive this?" "Yeah, yeah, get in." So we got in, and we're freaking driving around. He's doing burnouts and hitting the emergency brake, freaking doing, spins. And I'm just, it's like, wow, man, this is freaking awesome. Oh, there's a lot of little country roads and stuff around where I live, so. And, you hardly ever see a sheriff, or, a county sheriff. So, we just done that for a while, and just chilled out, and freaking, it was it was awesome. So, hell, next time, a couple weeks later, I seen him. He had a Monte Carlo, 1970 Monte Carlo for 454 in it, just freaking jacked out. And I'm like, "Man, this is freaking awesome. So we ride around in it, go places in it and stuff, all in the county. Would never go in the city. And so he come down to my house one day, and he had a little King Cobra, 70s model, the Mustangs. Like people say the worst Mustang, but I thought it was pretty cool. And he's like, "Yeah, man, let's go for a ride." And that thing was just squalling gears in every gear. And I'm like, "Dude, this thing's freaking, you know, BA, man." And I said, "Where did you get this from?" And he got it from a guy that worked with his dad and was always dealing with cars, trading cars and stuff. He said, "Yeah, it's for sale, man." So I had bought me a little scooter, and I was scooting around on a little scooter. And so I was like, "All right, I definitely want it, man." So um, I sold my scooter and did a couple other deals, and I got up the money, man, and I bought it off of him. I was so freaking happy. And I started driving around everywhere. I was like, I don't know, 11 and a half, maybe at this time. So I would go up to the pool hall and, hang out with everybody there. I showed a couple of people I knew my car, showed it off to them, and they were like, "Hey, dude, this thing's freaking zooped up. It had the power." And so, anyways, me and some other guys, they were a lot older than me. They were like 30 something or whatever. They're like, "Oh, dude, you got a car? Let's go, man." So, we're riding around all over the place. And we pull into Burger King, and they were getting ready to close. Like, people were shutting down. And we were sitting there talking. He's like, "Yo, man, let me drive your car in the parking lot a little bit." I'm like, "All right, cool." So he's doing freaking burnouts in the Burger King parking lot, and he comes around like where the where you order through the window, and he's sliding around sideways, and here comes a freaking policeman, and I'm like, oh man, and uh, they were drinking too, so uh, rewind it back a little bit. I forgot to tell you about this, but on our way up there, we had stopped, and these three girls were, outside of their car. It was a little Chevette, of course, but we were helping them, to get it running. It was something with the carburetor. I can't remember what it was, but the cop had showed up. A cop had showed up there and was like, "Hey, is everything all right?" Yeah, yeah, we're just getting this car fixed for him. So, anyways, the same cop shows up at Burger King, and I don't know, it's 30 minutes later. So he comes over to us, and I'd gotten the driver's seat. He's like, "Oh man, I ain't got license," and I'm like, man, I ain't got license either. I'm 11 and a half. So I got in the driver's seat. Yeah, he couldn't see us at all, but the cop comes over to me on the side window, and he said, "Hey, what's going on?" And he recognizes us. Oh, we're just sitting here, waiting on a friend or whatever. And he says, "Okay, well, uh, blah 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 and blah 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 this." And the guy beside me, my friend, is trying to push cloth over his beer, to hide it from the cops, just sitting in the console. And I feel it rubbing against me, so I put my hand on it, like, what the heck? And he said, "What's under that piece of cloth?" I said, "Wow, I don't know." So I lifted it up, and there's the beer. And he looks at me, like, what the heck? He's like, "Come over here to my car for a minute." So I go over there, and he pulls out a breathalyzer, and he said, "Have you been drinking?" And I said, "No." So he's like, "All right, blow in the machine." Of course I blowed zero. He's like, "All right. Well, I'm going to go down the road for a little bit, and I'm going to come back, and if this car's here, I'm going to tow it, and, we're going to do some other stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, crap." So, I'm thinking, he's going to try to catch me driving. I was like, "Well, I don't have a license to drive, so I don't, how am I going to get my car out here?" And my friend said, "Man, just be quiet. Don't worry about it." So he went down the road, and my friend got over and he drove it out of there. And anyways, we partied a little bit that night, just hanging out and stuff. Of course, I didn't do anything. I was just 11 and a half, just driving my car. But and then I traded that for some other stuff, and a guy my mom was dating, um, he always had this old car outside of his house. It's like in a little shed with a tarp on it. And my mom, I asked her, what's he got on the tarp? What kind of car is that? She said, "Oh, it's some kind of exotic or expensive car or something." He says he's going to sell it and make a lot of money one day. Well, one day there's this weird, like, I don't know, it, like, kind of, I don't know, I compare it to something like you've seen in the Back to the Future 2, little bit or something like that. I didn't think that movie had come out, but it was something, weirdly shaped. Like I'd never seen a car look like this before. So I get out, and I'm over there looking at it, and it's got like screens all over it and panels. And I'm thinking, what the heck is this, man? What kind of car has this stuff on it? And this is early 80s. So he come out there, Bill is his name. He come out there and he said, "Oh, you're looking at my Banshee." And I knew there was a four wheeler from Yamaha named Banshee just come out, and so I'm like, a couple of years ago, the Banshee, Yamaha Banshee had just come out, but I'm like, Banshee, that's the name of a four wheeler too. He's like, yeah, this is a concept car. There's not very many, or if any, in this world except this one. If there's another one, I've never seen it. So I started asking more information, how he got it, where he got it from, and stuff. And I said, man, it's got faded paint. The wheels are dried, but it looks like it could be a good car for somebody. That's just, man, it's going to rust away here, sitting in your yard. Why don't you get rid of it? He said, well, I've been thinking about that. I said, well, uh, I want to work out a deal with you. I want to get this car and do something with it. He said, all right. Well, so we worked out a deal, and it was more money than I paid for anything in my whole life. So I got the car, and I tried to figure out more stuff about it. I never really got very much information about it. People would look at it and to say, it's got to be something that someone made or something. And it said Pontiac Banshee on it. So I don't know what. Maybe a year later, he come back to me and he said, "I want to buy a car back." And I said, "Well, I bought it to make a profit. Me, so I'm going to make some profit." So he said, all right. So I ended up getting a little over 3 times my money back for it. And later on, he sold that thing for a wad of money to somebody. Uh, I don't know how they found out about it, if he advertised it, but come to find out that was the 64 Pontiac Banshee. And when I found that out, that supposedly there is only one car, and a collector has it now in his museum. And if it's the only one car, then it's got to be that car. Or there's 2 cars, or maybe more, and, I have one of them and let it go. So I'll always remember that. Do your research before you get rid of anything. And about that time, I don't know, 87, right around that time, I got into NASCAR, and I started working in a souvenir shop as well. So I dealt in, die cast, NASCAR cars, jackets, souvenirs, model cars. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. And, I learned a lot of stuff in that business. I learned how to operate a cash register. Well, let me just start it from the beginning. So I seen the store opened up. It's just right down from my house, probably 600 feet from my house. So I rode my bike down there because it was in the city, and I don't drive in the city when I was a kid. Yeah. And I rode my bike down there, and there was a guy named Ernie. That was his name, Ernie. And he was behind the counter, and he had all of the racing hoods off of the cars. He had Earnhardt's right in the middle, and that's the guy I love, Dale Earnhardt. The black GM Goodrich hood, and that's so freaking awesome, man. And that was his guy too. Ernie's driver was Dale Earnhardt as well. So we hit it off, man. And he had the Tide hood from Darrell Waltrip. He had the Coolers hood from Bill Elliott. He had the Kodiak hood, I guess, from Rusty Wallace. Yeah, it was from Rusty Wallace. It had to be the Kodiak, tobacco. Um, he had Tim Richmond's old Milwaukee hood. Oh, man, I'm trying to remember what other hoods he had. I think he had Neil Bonnet's Valvoline hood from the 75 car. Anyways, I said, hey, man, where'd you get all this stuff at? And, why did y'all decide to open up a NASCAR souvenir shop? So he showed me a bunch of pictures of him and his old shop in Myrtle Beach. He said, well, me and my business partner decided to open it up. So, anyways, they had all of the flags, the checkered, the red flag, the halfway flag, the white flag, all of them on top of the roof. It was so cool. The store was called Victory Lane. And so I just started, talking to him about more and more stuff. And finally one day he said, hey, man, instead of standing in front of the counter, why don't you come behind the counter, and help me with some stuff. So I started doing that, and they started paying me, and giving me collectibles that I traded and sold and stuff. And then later on, I went down there one day, and Ernie wasn't there, and all the hoods were gone, and the store was rearranged a little bit. So I was like, where's Ernie? And he said, oh, Ernie left. He's no longer working here. I said, working here? I thought he owned half of the business. He said, no, man, I'm the owner. So I said, oh, okay, well, that's cool. What's your name? His name is Bruce. So me and Bruce hit it off too. His driver was Bill Elliott. So he brought a little TV in, and he had all the old NASCAR tapes. So we used to watch those all the time, man. And just hang out. And so finally Bruce told me, hell, man, start working for me. You know a lot about this stuff. All right, cool. I started working for him, and I even got my school bus because I went to school in the city, but I lived in the county. But anyways, I got my mom to write me a letter to let me off at work, instead of taking me in my house, and then I have to, get on my bike, freaking cruise down to the store. So I just started doing that, and he showed me about the business, introduced me to people, and in that time, a lot of counterfeiting was going on because NASCAR was blowing up. This is right at 89, 90 by this time, and NASCAR is just everywhere. People are just buying like crazy. So, anyways, We went way, way, way out in the country, somewhere on the Tennessee side. I don't even know where we were at because we were going down so many back roads and stuff. So we go back to this little old gravel road, man. And we're going and going and going. And I said, Bruce, man, where are we going? He said, oh, I'll show you when we get there. So we go, and there's this humongous, gigantic warehouse. I was like, whoa, man. What is this? So we go in, and the first thing when you go in, the regular door, there's humongous freaking garage doors too, but we went through the little door. And there's freaking yachts, humongous yachts on the freaking, the moving trailers in here, four wheelers, motorcycles, just freaking everything. So I'm like, dude, this is freaking sweet. So we went over to the other side, and this guy had T-shirts, all NASCAR stuff, T-shirts, trading cards, all kinds of stuff laid out on this table. One of each laid out, right? And me and Bruce come in, and he's like, "All right, just pick whatever you want, Bruce. I got cases of it." So I'm looking at some of this stuff, and some of the shirts are like Dale Earnhardt's car, but it doesn't say any names or anything, and it looks like, I don't know, like a very bad 7-year-old artist drew it, like just getting started or something. And like, that's bootleg. These look good, but a little fuzzy. This looks good. And the guy notices me, checking everything out. And he said, "What do you think about it?" And I said, "Well, all of these look like total crap. These are horrible. You know, they're not good at all, man. You don't want these. These two right here are almost perfect, but you need to do this to them." So I'm sitting there telling this counterfeiter, how the stuff needs to be done. He's like, "All right, gotcha." So, anyways, we got a bunch of stuff from him, but at our shop, we always told people, hey, that this isn't legit. This is bootleg stuff. So we were charging that, and so then Bruce moved off, and I started selling stuff at the flea market from my uncle, and I was still wheeling and dealing in cars, motorcycles, and ATVs. And the last story I'm going to tell you tonight, there was these brothers down the street from me. They'd lived there their whole lives. And their last name was Dixon. And the oldest one was Bo. And he kind of looked like Bo Duke, but just a little bit slimmer face. And he always spiked his hair. His hair was like real short spikes. And then his cousin, Luke, of course, Luke Dixon, uh, didn't really look like Luke or Tom or what, the guy's real name. But he did have the same kind of hair, but it was just cut a little bit slimmer, if you know what I mean. And they didn't have no General Lee. I wish they did, but they had all kinds of freaking cars. Everything was Ford except Bo's Nova. That was the only non-Ford that they had in their yard. And their yard was behind their trailer. They lived in a little trailer with their mom and dad lived there as well, and then Boba's little brother. But there was this big. I don't. I wish I knew the color of the green. I can't remember it now, but big green Ford Torino back there, and I positive, pretty sure that it was a 1974 Torino. And I'm like, whose car is that? And Bo says, mine. I said, that looks pretty cool. Let's pop the hood. And there was I always get them mixed up. I think it was a 429 Cobra Jet engine in this bad boy. And I said, holy smokes, that's a freaking Cobra. He said, yeah. I said, dude, where did you get this at? He said, a little old lady bought it brand new. And I bought it off her about 4 years ago. And he only gave $1,500 for this car. And it had like 35,000 miles on it. And I said, dude, I want to buy it now. And he said, well, let me show you back here. And on the trimming had got curled up. Someone had rubbed him. And I think Kmart parking lot, I think that's what he said. In the next town up. And he said, I got exactly $1,500 out of that. So the car was free. So, he knew what the car was worth, roughly. He knew about 30% of what the car was worth, is what he thought it was worth. So we ended up making a deal, and, of course, me, I flipped that car for 10 times what I paid for him. Gave the guy some room to get rid of it, and to make his money and all that with it, because God said he was going to sell it. I don't know what he did with it. He didn't live in my town, so. Anyways, later on, Walmart had moved in front of her house, Super Walmart, and then Lowe's and all the other places. Well, they come and bought Dixon's land. They had a lot of land behind them. It was just like a little skinny tract of land, long skinny tract. It wasn't very wide, but it was long. Anyways, and they got a lot of money out of it. So Bo said, I'm going to get my car back. And I told him, who I sold it to. And that dude, he tracked it down. He got that car back. And unfortunately, when he was out hot riding it around, I don't know what he did, but it got a knock in it. And his little brother told him, and his cousin told him, you got to take that engine out and, tear it down and build it back up. No, it'd be fine. Ended up throwing a freaking rod, slinging a rod right through the block. They said it blowed a hole as big as a freaking football through the side of that block. It's a freaking shame, man. Yeah. But that's the way it goes sometimes. So. Anyways, I'll talk to y'all later.